across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Stand by for 3 fast-paced hours of news, views and topical debate. I am your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 03444 99 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, April the 7th. Here is what's coming up. Matters have come to a head in the same corner to whether the economic storm caused by war in the Middle East and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Chancellor Rachel Reeves insists that Britain must resume significant drilling in the North Sea oil and gas fields. In Crazy Corner, Mad Nut Zero Secretary Ed Miliband demands that the UK doubles down on his green zealotry and that his fantasy energy policies must be continued to the letter, to everyone's cost. It's Labour's battle of the century. Who are you backing, Rachel or Ed? 0344499 1000. Meanwhile, after those profane White House threats, either Iran is bombed back to the Stone Age tonight, or the president is full of it. What happened to the peace treaties Trump assured us the Mad Mullahs were desperately seeking 2 weeks ago? Are these the same treaties that are going to crop up at the 11th hour tonight, like they did to absolutely no avail the last time? Or is Trump going to do what he incessantly promises and raze Iran to the ground? Will America's military might destroy Iran's oil supplies and bridges to ruin the entire country? Watch this space. But one thing's for sure. The latest Ayatollah, semi-conscious or not, is not going to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So, to bomb or not to bomb? That is the question. Either way, unless a miracle ends Trump's war, there's a global recession coming soon to a world near you. 03444 499 1000. Also on today's full-on show, hapless wireless music festival boss Melvin Benn's disastrous decision to book a Nazi as the headline act has ended in chaos. Due to his rampant anti-Semitism, Kanye West has been banned from entering Britain. Therefore, the entire wireless event, which was due to unfold in Finsbury Park in North London in July, has now been cancelled. Melvin previously begging us all to forgive West for his love of Adolf Hitler, as 4 major sponsors, including Pepsi, dropped out. Just thinking, Ben, wouldn't it have been a better idea to find a main attraction star who, I don't know, wasn't a blatant anti-Semite? Just a thought. 03444 499 1000. In other news, as Italy edges towards chemically castrating rapists and paedophiles, should Britain adopt the same policy? Sex crimes in the UK are soaring. Isn't it about time we took a stronger stance? 03444 499 1000. Plus, Iceland CEO Sir Richard Walker offers his namesake Walker Smith a job. At least one supermarket chain knows how to treat a hero store assistant whose sackable offence at Waitrose was to try to stop a shoplifter making off with a bag full of stolen Easter eggs. 17 years at the Clapham branch in South London, and he's fired on the spot for doing the right thing. Why did Waitrose treat Walker like that? 0344 499 1000. Also today, rape gang victim Fiona Goddard delivers her verdict on the public inquiry that she walked out on. And finally, the total and utter cancellation of axed Scott Mills as the BBC ruthlessly wipes the former Radio 2 breakfast DJ from history, unpersoned in a sinister way that North Korea would be proud of. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday afternoon together. Let's spend the first 20 minutes or so in the excellent company of senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Well, first of all, let's talk about Kanye West. Now, this was the guy who was going to headline, I think, for 3 days in a row, the big wireless festival in Finsbury Park in North London in July. I think it's about a 3-day festival. Now, this guy, Melvin Ben, who is the managing director of the wireless festival, he said, I've booked him because, we've got to forgive him. Why don't you forgive him like I've forgiven him? Everybody deserves a second chance. This is a guy who made a single called
Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler. Yeah. He had a clothing range based on Hitler, on Nazis, on hating Jews. He made a big thing about it and seems to think that if he takes out a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal, which he did in January, saying, well, sorry about my anti-Semitism and my racism and my love of Nazis and my love of Adolf Hitler, but you see, I got bipolar, so it's not my fault. Well, it turns out that the British government takes the stance that it is his fault and they won't let him in. So Melvin Ben, it seems to me, has single-handedly ruined the wireless festival by inviting a Nazi to headline, to be the headline act. Why on earth did he not find one of the thousands of stars who are not anti-Semites? That's what I would say. That said, what are your thoughts, what are your feelings about us banning Kanye West from entering Britain purely because of his opinions? His opinions are disgusting. We do not condone them. But are we now a country that bans people from entering because we don't like what they think?
Well, it's a really difficult question, isn't it? And this, I think this particular instance goes slightly beyond the free speech debate, because if you are releasing songs like Heil Hitler, if you're wearing swastika branding and you're selling swastika branding, you're actually, in this day and age, in this climate, it's essentially encouraging violence towards Jews, because we know it's happening all the time. It happened at the synagogue in Eden Park. There was the big terrorist conspiracy that was foiled, but could have happened and would have been the biggest terrorist event in our history. So all of that kind of stuff, for me, it goes slightly beyond that. But for me, it also points to the hypocrisy of the government. The government is saying, we are not letting him in because we will not stand for anti-Semitism. And yet we have hate marches every week on the on the streets of London. We had the Egyptian guy who was presented as being a freedom fighter, but was the biggest anti-Semite since Adolf Hitler. We've got all of this stuff happening. So it's the government here just trying to kind of get some brownie points, dealing with someone who isn't British, while not dealing with the domestic problem, which is actually huge. And for me, that's the key issue here. Yeah,
it's an interesting one. I mean, I think that for all the hell that the Jewish community in this country have been through, actually since October the 7th, a couple of years ago, that perhaps we owe them this gesture to ban this Nazi from the country. That said, I'm uncomfortable about the idea of living in a country that bans people for what they think, for their opinions. You might find their opinions to be disgusting, but their opinions, for me, are an issue of freedom of speech. Just because your opinions are vile to most people doesn't mean to say, in my view, that you should be banned from expressing them. But that said, I think the real villain of this story, or the real idiot of this story, is Melvin Ben, for inviting Kanye West in the first place. Why do that? Let's move on very quickly because I'm waiting to see what happens, like most people. But Donald Trump, for the umpteenth time, is saying that tonight, he will reduce Iran to the Stone Age. There'll be nothing left of it. He will bomb all the bridges, all their energy supplies, all their oil supplies, etc., etc. It's going to bomb them back to the Stone Age unless they open the Strait of Hormuz. The problem with this, Philip, is that the Ayatollah, the latest Ayatollah, who we're told is only semi-conscious or not, this guy and the Mad Mullahs are not going to open the Strait of Hormuz.
No.
So what do you think will happen tonight? Do you think Donald Trump will, like he did 2 weeks ago, say, oh, it's brilliant, they're negotiating, they want peace? Well, they clearly didn't, if they even existed. Do you think he's going to sort of say something like that again? Because if at sort of 11 o'clock tonight he's saying that 1 a.m. British time the bombing will start, but if at 11 a.m. he said, oh, it's remarkable, they've come out of the woodwork, they're seeking peace, so it's really worked. If he says that, I mean, that's the end of it for me. I'm just not going to listen to him anymore.
No, I think he's really at the end of the road with all of this stuff, isn't he? And I'm loath to make a prediction here because I'm holding myself hostage to fortune. If I get it wrong, you'll have me on the show tomorrow saying, oh, you got it wrong. Mind you, if I got it right, you'd have me on the show tomorrow saying I got it right and I'd be a genius. But I think Donald Trump has so much previous of this brinksmanship, of pushing everything right to the brink and then pulling back. And I suggest he will probably, I might be wrong, he will pull back. Because if he doesn't, then all hell is going to break loose and we are going to have the most terrible situation since 1945. So I'm incredibly worried about it, but I think he will pull back. For me, it's the nature of the language, of the dialogue, of the rhetoric, which is just so alarming and really calls into question his ability to be a statesman and be a world leader of this state. Here's
the thing, even his friend Nigel Farage was talking about this post he made a couple of nights ago, this kind of rather unhinged post saying, you know, hey, open the effing strait, you crazy bastards, this sort of swearing his head off, clearly at 3 a.m. Him saying that, does he think that the mullahs are going to go, oh, blimey, Donald's really annoyed, he's so annoyed with us, he's swearing at us, we'd better open the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, it's a very strange scenario we're witnessing here.
Well, it's one of two things. It's either this performativity, which is as much for us and the West as it is for the Middle East, or he's really losing it. And I think there's evidence to suggest that might be the case. Actually, it isn't just about this. We were talking last week, weren't we, about how he was addressing the French president and what he was saying about his wife and all of that kind of thing. And I don't think that the president of the United States should be talking like this on microphone and on camera. There's something really, as I say, there's something quite unhinged about it, and it's very alarming that kind of behavior, bearing in mind he can have his finger on the red button, is very alarming indeed.
I'll tell you what I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a kind of 10-hour poker game against Donald Trump. I think it'd be very easy to beat. He kind of reveals his hand a lot, doesn't he? That tweet the other night, or the Truth Social post, it was a bit like him saying, oh, you've got me, I'm furious, I'm utterly furious. But even his friend over here, Nigel Farage, talking in terms of the president's rhetoric, he's recently said a whole civilization will die tonight. Now Farage says, I'm quite shocked just to hear that. That is over the top in every single way. So even his friends, I would count myself as a Trump supporter, but I think you would as well, Philip. But I'm getting concerned about this guy. I don't think this campaign is going well, and he's lashing out like a mad dervish. Let's remind ourselves of what he was up to yesterday. Take it away, Donald.
They have till tomorrow. Now, we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this, but we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, Stone Age.
See, the thing about that is, those of us who are innocent in the ways of the war might say, well, if you could have done that, why didn't you do that on day one? Then you could have beaten them. could have got everything you want. So why didn't you do that before? And secondly, it just sounds kind of desperate. And we're going to have to wait. Now, if he does fall back, it's interesting, isn't it? Here he is introducing his favourite chorus. Yeah, they're talking, they're negotiating, they want peace. Yeah, you said that the last time. And you said that the time before last. They obviously don't want peace that much, because every time you say they want peace, the mullahs announce, no, we don't. We don't want peace. We're not going to buckle to your terms. So the overall impression is he's backed himself into a corner, and either tonight he proves to be a man of his word, and tragically, terribly, he bombs Iran back to the Stone Age, which of course America could do, or, as I said in my monologue, he's just going to look completely full of it, isn't he?
Well, he's looking full of it already, because he's telling transparent lies. And if there's one thing we know about the Middle East, it's the difficulty in finishing these forever wars and these complex, dirty, horrible wars. Now, last week he was saying, look, we did the difficult thing. We started it. You do the easy thing. You finish it. Now, that's transparently nonsense. That's obviously, a lie. It's obviously a man who's very desperate and just wants to rid himself of the mess he's created for himself, us, and everybody else. So as I say, I'm feeling very alarmed just watching him and listening to him speak and things like that. The Stone Age. It's almost as though he doesn't comprehend what war is. As we were talking about, as I was just watching that, then I was thinking about the end of the war. I was thinking about that footage of the concentration camps opening. I was thinking about Dresden. I was thinking about the Blitz. And all of that historical footage of seeing the real cost of war. So if you're just blasé and talking about sending people back to the Stone Age, that is incredibly worrying, or you just don't take it seriously at all. Either way, it's not the greatest position to be in.
It certainly isn't. Philip, it's excellent to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. That was Philip Gisley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Next up, we are going to talk about Ed Miliband and Rachel Reeves turning out to be the bout of the century. It's a boxing match, a fight to the death between Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who late in life seems to have collided with common sense, is just saying, because of the Iran war, because of the Strait of Hormuz, we cannot carry on ideologically limpet-like clinging to Red Ed Miliband's crazy net zero nonsense. We can't do this. We've got to start drilling our own energy supplies in the North Sea, maybe even frack. She's not saying fracking, but a lot of us are. So she's saying, come on, we've got to get real. We've got to get pragmatic. Ed Miliband, absolutely doubling down. Now is not the time to show weakness. Now is the time to stop all drilling and to prove that this country, Great Britain, can exist on renewables alone, windmills and solar panels. The problem is, of course, it can't. That's scientifically impossible. So the question is will Rachel Reeves prevail? I can't quite believe I'm saying this, but I'm on Rachel's side. I hope she wins this debate. Or will Ed Miliband win? And if he wins, we are in such deep trouble, folks. The country will go bankrupt and every citizen in it will go bankrupt unless we do something about Red Ed, Crazy Ed's absolute climate change zealotry, which is driving this country to hell in a handcart. That next, stay tuned.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, welcome back. It is the showdown of the century in terms of Labour, and it's a very important one for this country. As I said earlier, I can't quite believe this, but I am in full support of Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who is saying now is not the time for green zealotry. Now is not the time for fundamentalism about climate change emergency. Because of the Middle Eastern war and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which so much of British oil comes, 20% of the world's oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz, that's been closed down. Because of that, we can't carry on acting like sixth form activists. We've got to get real, and we've got to start tapping into our own energy supplies, as in the North Sea, where there's plenty of gas and oil to last this country for many years to come. Perhaps we could think about fracking as well, but we've got to start thinking about powering our own country, and we've got to start accepting what Ed Miliband won't accept, and that is that it is impossible to power Great Britain, this country, through windmills and solar panels alone. Let's get on my next guest. He is a former government minister, Tory minister, of course, and is now founder of the Net Zero Scrutiny Group in Westminster, Steve Baker. Steve, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Before we talk, we put together a little montage of Ed Miliband. Every time I look at this guy, I get more and more worried. Here goes Ed. Take it away.
Those people who say new exploration licenses, which is the issue people are talking about, will somehow create huge amounts of energy for us. I mean, they're just wrong.
How will you defend the idea to your constituents that other countries should own our national energy infrastructure, but Britain should not?
I'll tell you what angers Keir most about this country. It's class.
Rolling out renewables at speed, solar, wind, all types of renewables, is the best way we can insulate ourselves from global economic shocks, a point we have consistently made and sadly is being borne out by the events we see around the world.
I mean, Steve, the man is an ideologue and a fanatic. Now, at the best of times, that kind of a guy is not the sort of person you want in charge of your energy policies. But when we've got a war in the Middle East, when we've got the Strait of Hormuz completely closed to shipping, and the mother of all oil shortages coming down the track like a freight train, his ideology, his zealotry, is not right for these circumstances. And as I said earlier, I cannot believe it, but I support Rachel Reeves because she, to her credit, has seen this is not the time for zealous ideology. This is the time for realism. We've got to start tapping into our own energy supplies, got to start properly drilling the North Sea, right?
Yeah. Kevin, I agree with you, and like you, I'm shocked to discover that I agree with Rachel Reeves. But that's, of course, because she's in the Treasury, and the Treasury know that we need our own jobs, our own profitable companies, we need our own tax revenues, and we need to have the stability of our own security of supply. And this nonsense has gone on for far too long. And the problem with net zero is that the cost of it cannot survive impact with the public. That's why we've now got Labour MPs calling for drilling. It's why we've got trade unions and even the SNP starting to sound moderate on this issue. We just do need to go for the oil and gas, which even the Committee on Climate Change says will be burning for many years to come. And it just makes no sense whatsoever to be importing that energy to the extent that we are, when we could be going for our own energy here in the UK. And I agree with you, I'd go for shale gas too. I was asked when I was standing for election, would you support shale gas if it was discovered in Buckinghamshire? And I said two things. Well, number one, it won't be, because that's not the geology. But if it is, start under my house, because the seismic impact of it will be less than the train line that runs beside. And that killed the attack on me. You know, we've got to get real about shale. And we've got to go for gas, get real about the economy. And of course, we need new drilling licenses in the North Sea. I think Ed Miliband is now raising zealotry to the level of a cult. And, you know, as you said, it's like worthy of the sixth form. But the thing is, he's the Secretary of State. And it's not just a recent discovery for him. He's been doing this for getting on for 20 years. He was behind the 2008 Act. And this kind of virtue signalling, we cannot afford as a country. It must stop.
I've got to point out that it was your former Prime Minister, Theresa May, who saddled this country with this ludicrous target that we must be net zero by 2050. We could have done without that, to be honest with you, Steve.
We absolutely could. And I remember sitting there with Craig McKinley, who now works in the field. In this field. Craig and I sat there in the House of Commons when this measure was nodded through without a division in the House, and we had to ask ourselves, shall we force a vote? And do you know why we didn't? We knew that the only people who would vote against it were the people who could think for themselves, that is the Eurosceptics. And at the height of the Brexit drama, we just could not afford to put a dozen Eurosceptics through the lobby and be ridiculed for it. We had to get this country out of the EU. And I'm afraid that's the reality of politics. These issues get conflated. We would have been attacked terribly if a dozen of us had gone through and voted no. But you're absolutely right. This has been the consensus across all the political parties for far, far too long. That's why Craig and I and others started the Net Zero Scrutiny Group of MPs, as we then were. And I hope we've sort of cracked the dam. It's now become acceptable to talk about the cost of net zero. And what we see is that time and again, it doesn't withstand contact with the public. But if I may say so, I'm reasonably proud that I took the risk of stepping up and saying this is not acceptable. I just wish that we'd won the argument much, much sooner.
What do we do, Steve, about, you know, I don't say this lightly. I mean, we're all used, in my business, we're used to hurling insults out around about politicians, crazy, useless, mad and all that. But Ed Miliband takes that to a whole new level, an unprecedented level. And I do feel that the very important, the crucial to our future is our energy policy. And it is a source of a huge concern that the man in charge of it, the very powerful man in charge of it, is frankly an insane zealot. He does not seem to possess his own marbles. It's really worrying. And what we need, here's to Rachel Reeves for finally taking a stand. We need the Prime Minister to team up with Rachel Reeves and to tell Ed, listen, take your zealotry, take your green claptrap and come back to us another day after the Middle Eastern war and after they've reopened the Strait of Hormuz, because now is not the time. And if we do pursue Ed Miliband's insane policies, this country will go bankrupt and every citizen in it will follow.
Well, I think what the Labour whip should be doing, and they won't be taking my advice, but they should be going out and saying to every Labour MP, is this really what you wanted for your constituents? These costs, these huge industrial energy prices, the deindustrialisation of our country, the insecurity and so on, is this really what you wanted? Because if it is, you'll be sticking with Ed Miliband, but we don't think it is, and we think you'll want to stand with Keir Starmer as he sides with Rachel Reeves against Ed Miliband. That's what the Labour whip should be doing. I doubt that they will, because far too many Labour MPs stood on absolutely daft manifesto promises of saying that the Conservatives, notwithstanding everything we did, hadn't gone far enough. I mean, this has become really obscene for what it's done to prices for the public. There's no such thing as a rich country with low levels of energy abundance. To be rich, we need high levels of energy abundance. That means we should go for gas, we should go for shale gas, We should go for small modular reactors and drive down the cost of nuclear. We need abundant power in this country so that people can have the jobs that they deserve, so the Treasury can have a bit more tax revenue to try and meet the hugely unaffordable spending promises which have been entered into. I mean, we've just got to go for growth if we're to serve the public. That does, of course, have a corollary. It means we need the public, everybody who's listening to this, to write to their MP and say what they demand of their MP, which is to go for growth, go for energy abundance, drill in the North Sea, go for shale. We really do need to make those MPs feel the pressure of the electorate demanding abundant energy.
And to people like you, for that matter, me, everybody, we should scream from the rooftops that Ed Miliband, the twin-pronged defence of his stance on his part is this. He says, well, the thing is, the North Sea oil field is 75% denuded. It's only got 25% of its energy left. That is enormous. It will last us for decades, hundreds of years maybe. And secondly, he says that this country can be powered exclusively by windmills and solar panels. That is just a lie.
There's two things. Well, it is a lie, I'm afraid, and he should know, he will know, that solar and wind is intermittent. I almost never use the L word, but wind and solar are intermittent. That means that they stop when the wind doesn't blow and the sun goes in. That means you have to have gas if the lights aren't to go out. And this, of course, points to drilling. And as for the amount of oil and gas that's left in the North Sea, the thing to do is to create the conditions within which private companies can choose to invest or not in getting the oil and gas out of the ground and exploring for more. The truth is that Norway actually has a huge sovereign wealth fund, largely funded, of course, by oil and gas out of the North Sea. It's the same North Sea, albeit with some border issues, but it's the same North Sea that we have access to, and we really should be getting on with it. I mean, it really is just shameful that this nonsense goes on. And, Ed Miliband should be really pressed on this issue of intermittency. He should also be pressed on something called curtailment costs, because that's the other end of the spectrum. Sometimes the wind blows too strongly and you can't use all the power. And the wind farm operators are paid money to produce electricity that can't be used. And it's honestly, the nonsense of it is just legion. And we can't afford this anymore. Go for nuclear, go for gas, go for shale gas. For goodness sake, Rachel Reeves should be allowed to win this one and get that gas going in the North Sea, and the sooner the better. Yeah,
well, you'll only hear me say this once, but go Rachel. Steve, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Steve Baker there, former government minister, Tory minister, and founder of the Net Zero Scrutiny Group in Westminster. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. We've got to stop Miliband. Otherwise, I'm not joking, folks. We are in massive problems. If we don't stop this guy, the country will go bankrupt. And all of us will go bankrupt with it. We've got the highest energy bills in the world, thanks to Ed Miliband. Keep saying they're going to go down, they keep going up, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse. We do not need a zealous ideologue running our energy policies at the moment. We need a pragmatist who realises the world is in big trouble. We need to act accordingly. We need to adapt. We've got to, otherwise we're in massive, massive trouble. 03444991000. Next up, let's talk about Kanye West. He's been, he won't be appearing at the Wireless Festival now because he's been banned from Britain. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He's the Director of Investigations and Enforcement at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Stephen Silverman. Welcome, Stephen.
Good afternoon.
Kanye West, the issue of whether or not he will headline the Wireless Festival in July in Finsbury Park in North London is now a non-issue, given that the government has banned him from entering Britain. Do you agree with that banning?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, it goes without saying that everybody, no matter what they've done, well, almost no matter what they've done, has the right to be able to rehabilitate themselves, to redeem themselves in the eyes of society, and to be reinstated into the position they formerly held in society, in their profession, wherever. The problem is, with Kanye West, we have been through cycle after cycle of apology and then further anti-Semitic conduct. And this time, you know, words alone, saying, I'm sorry, I'll be better, just aren't enough. He's a serial abuser of the Jewish community, and what matters now is his actions in the coming months and indeed years to show that his remorse is genuine and that it's a change that's here for the long term.
I think that, I don't know the right word here, but if you like, the villain of the story from my point of view, obviously Kanye West, his behaviour in the past has been disgusting, releasing a single called Heil Hitler, a range of clothing based on swastikas, telling us how great he thought the Nazis were, etc., etc. So, of course, he can go to hell for those kind of views. But for me, the villain of this story is a guy called Melvin Benn, who is the managing director of the Wireless Festival. The Wireless Festival is a traditional old rock festival that millions of people have enjoyed over many years. It dates back decades. It's at Finsbury Park in July. Why on earth would Melvin Benn decide to appoint or to hire as the main attraction, the headline act, a man with such a clear anti-Semitic past? Why would he do that when there are thousands of stars out there who are not anti-Semites, who are not Nazis? And Melvin Benn says, well, you should be like me. You should forgive him and give him a second chance. Well, I'm not so sure about that, because Kanye West's reason for being for his anti-Semitism was that he suffered from bipolar. Well, I've never heard bipolar causing people to be racists before. So why the hell do you think that Melvin Benn we did try to get him on, by the way, but he's not answering calls at the moment, unsurprisingly. Why the hell would he decide to choose just about the only major rock star I can think of who's an out there stated Nazi? Why would he choose that guy?
Well, look, I think the clue is in his statement that he gave after the cancellation of the festival, that nobody who it was discussed with beforehand raised any objections. Well, of course they didn't, because he discussed it with people in whose financial interests it was for the festival to go ahead with Kanye West. And of course, the reason is that Kanye West is one of the biggest names on the entertainment scene, and a huge financial draw. I mean, look at the sponsors who he had lined up and, of course, then dropped out. So I think this is an unholy mess, and it's the kind of thing that happens when you prioritize profit over principle. But there is another aspect to this story, which I think is very, very interesting. The government ultimately banned Kanye West from entering the UK. Now, look at the decisive action that they can take against anti-Semitism when it has to do with Nazi ideology, and contrast that with the equivocation, obfuscation and gaslighting that goes on with anti-Semitism of the extreme left, and indeed Islamist extremism of the kind that we've seen over the last 2.5 years. It's very, very, very clear that you know, this is coming from a place where people still recognize Nazism as genuine anti-Semitism, but refuse to recognize the anti-Semitism that exists in their midst and has been stalking the Jewish community for 2.5 years now and shows no sign of letting up whatsoever.
Well, I've seen a few of these marches, these pro-Palestine marches that still snake through our cities most weekends, and there was that rally, the demonstration, the Al-Quds rally, was it 2-3 weekends ago, with old Bob Villan standing there chanting death, death to the IDF. All of these events, I don't know if you've ever been to have a look at them, Stephen, but all of them, there is a very seriously strong anti-Semitic undercurrent to them. Loads of people chanting jihad from the river to the sea, when will Palestine be free, death, death to the IDF, etc., etc., etc. So I would suggest that Keir Starmer has played a pretty good game on Kanye West. He was fast out of the traps, decrying the decision for him to headline. He gave a big statement to the Sun newspaper over the weekend, so full marks to him for that. And the government has taken a stance against Kanye West generally, so full marks to the government. But now we need to see that kind of commitment to opposing anti-Semitism applied to these marches, the pro-Palestine marches and demonstrations, right?
Well, absolutely. There isn't just one flavour of anti-Semitism, and the government needs to be able to recognise just how toxic and indeed lethal the kind of anti-Semitism that exists on the extremes of the left and in the midst of the Islamist extremists, how toxic that is. And there is a hesitancy to do that we do not see when it comes to the anti-Semitism of the extreme right, Nazi ideology. They're very, very quick, and quite rightly so. I'm not criticizing them for doing that, but they need to actually take the same measures with all forms of anti-Semitism and not be selectively outraged by it.
Absolutely. Well said, Stephen. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Stephen Silverman, Director of Investigations and Enforcement at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. One more thing I'm going to throw into the mix. Give me a call. Let me know what you think. Now, we banned Kanye West because of his Nazism, because of his anti-Semitism, his dislike of Jews, his racism towards Jewish people. So he's been banned from the country. I'm not against that. I'm slightly worried about us banning people from the country because of what they think, even if what they think is disgusting, like what Kanye West thinks. But let me ask you this. Think about this, right? So we banned Kanye West. As we speak, weather's nice. I'll guarantee you there's probably 300 migrants coming across the channel in small boats, illegal migrants coming across in the small boats now on their way to Dover, folks in the south coast of Britain. If the weather goes on like this, on a good weather week, as this looks like it's going to be, you'll get 1,000 migrants, nearly all young men between the age of 16 and 35, all from mainly Muslim cultures in the Middle East and Africa, mainly Muslim cultures, Islamic cultures. They're coming over, no questions asked, no documents checked. They're just checked into the country. Yeah, here's a hotel. Here's 50 quid a week, free lawyers, free doctors, etc. Now, the chances are that those people, shall we say, their worldview is probably slightly anti-Semitic, to say the least, because they're from the Middle East. Muslim countries aren't best friends with the Israelis. So we're banning Kanye West. But this week, probably hundreds of people not well disposed towards the Israel nation, the Israeli people, towards the Jews, they'll be let in. So there's an anomaly there, isn't there? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Let's go to break. When we come back, the big question. Italy, Giorgia Meloni, is about to introduce a punishment for rapists and paedophiles, for violent sex criminals, chemical castration. They're going to be castrated. This is Italy. It's a serious modern European country. Sex crimes in Britain are soaring, rocketing. The number is absolutely alarming. Is it time that we started to think seriously about following in Italy's footsteps and chemically castrating sex offenders, serious sex offenders? Should we think about that? That's the question. 03444991000. We'll talk about that after this break.
The crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. She is a survivor of child sexual abuse and a campaigner on women's safety. Welcome to the show, Chris Tuck. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for joining us. This is a bit difficult, but I wanted to get your view on it. Now, in Italy, the backdrop to this is, you will be aware, sex crimes, sex offences in this country are soaring. Over the year ending last March, basically 210,000 sexual offences were recorded. That's an 11% increase on the previous year. That is alarming. Of those, among those, and this will particularly concern you, approximately, this is really worrying, from 24 to 25, the same year I'm talking about, approximately a third of all police recorded sexual offences, we're talking about between 70 and 80,000, were committed against children, paedophile offences. So these are very worrying statistics, begging the question, are we doing enough to deter people from considering committing sexual offences? Now, in Italy, Giorgio Meloni, the leader there, is backing well-advanced plans to bring in, as a punishment in Italy, for those who commit violent sex crimes against women and children, the worst kind of sex crimes, chemical castration, to castrate them with chemicals, to A, punish them, and B, ensure that they can never repeat their heinous crimes. What do you feel about that as a punishment? Shabana Mahmood was piloting a scheme not so long ago where a handful of voluntary prisoners volunteered to go through this process. What do you think, Chris, about bringing it in as an official proper punishment?
I think, Kevin, if it was proven to work, like beyond doubt, that it would reduce offending, I would be all for it. But obviously, we've got to think about the legalities and the ethicalness of this, body autonomy and all of that. Now, I'm not sticking up for offenders one bit. I'm a survivor, as you know, and I worked on the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. So I've heard harrowing stories day in, day out. So anything that we can do to prevent and to deter and to make sure that we better protect children and young people, I'm all for. But I haven't yet seen any research that shows us that chemical castration is an answer to reducing offending, especially when we know offending isn't just about reducing libido. It's about power, control, coercion, and entitlement. Yeah. So will a chemical castration help with that? I don't think it will.
But if you could see evidence, I mean, if it did deter people, we do have a problem, Chris, you know.
We do.
I mean, I'm just throwing this out there as a potential solution, but something is going wrong here. Sexual offences, the number of sexual offences is rocketing in this country, particularly against children. Let me ask you another question to do with this. At the very least, I'm staggered and shocked by Britain's policy towards first-time paedophile offenders. Very, very, very few of whom ever go to jail. We saw Hugh Edwards recently caught in possession of the vilest child sex images, the worst kind, walked free from court. They all walk free. They get suspended sentences. Do we need to change that policy at the very least and start putting these people in prison?
We need to be doing a lot more to prevent and to punish, because this act of sexual violence or abuse against children and young people is just unspeakable. And we are only at the tip of the iceberg with the recorded police cases, Kevin. If you take all offending, total offending as a jigsaw puzzle and took each piece of that puzzle and look at the offending on each piece of that puzzle, we've got online, we've got institutional abuse, we've got intrafamilial abuse, we've got peer-to-peer abuse, we've got so much different types of offending that we need to be looking at the bigger picture. We need to be putting in policies that will actually change the way that we deal and respond to child sexual abuse in its whole picture.
In its entirety,
we always only look at one little bit and go, oh my God, isn't that bad? Well, if we look at the bigger picture, that should scare all of us into taking proper action.
Can I ask you a last question, Chris? Thanks so much for coming on. I've got to go in a second because it's nearly the news. But Why do you think we are having this kind of explosion in the number of sex crimes in this country?
To be fair, Kevin, I think it's always been there. It's just we report on it more now.
Yeah.
And we also are more aware of the different types of offending and the impact on children and young people and us survivors who grow into adults, and the impact that is lifelong and usually goes into the next generation if the trauma's not dealt with. So I am for anything that is shown to reduce offending, that is shown to better protect children and young people. So, yeah, that's my stand and my stance on this.
Chris, really good to come on again soon. We'll have a proper chat about this, but thank you so much for your time. Chris Tuck there, a child sexual abuse survivor. Do you think we should follow Italy? Should we think about chemically castrating rapists and paedophiles, the worst kind of sex criminals? Because we got a problem here, folks. Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk about Walker Smith. He's the guy that got fired, got sacked by Waitrose for doing the right thing. Some little tow rag shoplifter trying to run out of the shop with a bag full of very expensive Lindt chocolate Easter eggs. Walker Smith is a shop assistant who's worked for Waitrose in Clapham in South London for 17 years. He had right, you know. So he grabbed hold of the bag, tried to stop the guy. The guy got away, and Walker chucked one of the eggs at a nearby shopping trolley in frustration and anger. That was it. For that, he got fired because Waitrose have got a 100% policy that the staff must not confront shoplifters for their own safety. I don't agree with that. Do you? Now, I think everybody has to make their own decisions in these moments. If you see a shoplifter, do you stop him or her, or do you not? It's up to you. But I don't think a store should have 100% policy that its workers should do nothing about shoplifters. Stopping a shoplifter is doing the right thing. That's what British people do. They do the right thing. And I don't think they should be dissuaded from doing the right thing. So when Waitrose said, none of our products, none of our stock is worth anyone's life, well, you know, OK, that's taking it a bit far. But I think Waitrose should say that its stock, its retailing goods are worth taking a stand about. Anyway, the boss of Iceland, Sir Richard Walker, same name, Richard Walker has offered Walker Smith a job at Iceland. Good for Sir Richard Walker. Doing the right thing. A supermarket chain, in my view, doing the right thing. Well done to Iceland. As opposed to Waitrose sacking a loyal member of staff who worked there for 17 years for trying to stop a shoplifter stealing stuff from Waitrose. Waitrose, fire him. That is all wrong, if you ask me. 0344 499 1000. Now, we'll do that story in just a little while. But first up, for the next 20 minutes or so, let's talk to historian Rafe Heidelman-Koo. Hello, Rafe.
Hi, Kevin. Great to be with you.
Good to have you on the show. Well, first up, let me ask you about... you are, of course, the great man who awoke this nation to the horror of that, I use the term loosely, comedian, Lenny Henry. It never made anyone laugh in his life, but he calls himself a comic. He wants Britain to pay £18 trillion worth of reparations to various countries around the world where Britain's 300 years ago used to have slave plantations, that kind of thing. If we paid up the £18 trillion, it would make this country bankrupt and make everyone in it bankrupt. So thank you very much for that, Lenny. So you awoke the nation to that, and it caused quite a stir. Well, Reform UK are taking a stand on this issue because there are all these countries that you know who are still demanding vast amounts of slavery reparations from us. They include Kenya, Haiti, Guyana, Barbados, the Bahamas. The list goes on. Well, through its spokesman, Zia Youssef, Reform is saying that any country demanding reparations from a reform government will have all of its visa agreements rescinded. It will not. They will have no more visas for their people to come to Britain. And furthermore, those countries who have received over the years £6.6 billion between them in foreign aid, they will get no more foreign aid. So we have handed out to those countries over the past few years 3.8 million visas and £6.6 billion in foreign aid. Zia Youssef saying a reform government will punish all countries demanding slavery reparations by taking away their visa agreement and any foreign aid money. Do you agree with Reform's stand?
Absolutely. I want to give them a round of applause. Bravo to Nigel Farage, bravo to Zia, bravo to the Reform Party. This is just the sort of thing we need governments to say. We should have been saying this for years, well over a decade we should have been saying this. And yes, they have received billions of pounds in aid, which of course is never acknowledged and never recognized. We have to call this out. These are now countries that are hostile to Britain. They're actively hostile to Britain, even though they're part of the Commonwealth. And they see in Keir Starmer and the Labour Party ideological allies, people who prioritize far left ideology like post-colonial theory, like decolonisation, ahead of Britain's national interest. They can see how Labour are giving away the Chagos Islands. They can see, of course, that they have an ally, because Lord Homer, the Attorney General to Keir Starmer, was advising the Caribbean countries on reparations. So they're trying to take advantage of naive Western guilt, all this navel gazing that we're doing in the West, to get money. This is an avaricious cash grab by corrupt leaders in Africa and in the Caribbean. It's far easier to blame all of their countries' ills on imperialism than on the real cause, which is their own incompetence, their own corruption and their mismanagement of the economy and the infrastructure. And I would even go further than Reform. I would say to the Caribbean nations, you've already had your reparations, because the black people that are the majority of the people living in the Caribbean islands aren't from the Caribbean. They came from Africa. They never owned, they're not the indigenous peoples, and yet now they own all of those Caribbean islands. The territory is now theirs. That's a pretty good deal, if you ask me.
Yeah. I always want to say to all these nations, you say, oh, yeah, you had... You British people had plantations in our country 300 years ago. You owe us £50 billion. I always want to ask them if they can swivel, because they can swivel on this, if you know what I mean. It's just ridiculous. Just tell them to go away. But if they won't go away, then I'm with you. I think Reform UK are correct. Let's send them a message. You want to continue demanding these outrageous reparations compensation, then there will be results. You will pay for that price. So I'm with Reform. I'm on your side on that one, Rafe. Let's talk about striking junior doctors, shall we? Well, it turns out that as they hit the picket lines, for the 15th time in 3 years, demanding yet more money after they were given 30% when West Streeting first unwisely gave them everything they wanted straight after Labour winning the last election. Well, we all said, well, if you give them their 30%, they're going to come back, and they'll come back, and they'll come back. And guess what? They have. And they're on the picket lines again today, 15th time in 3 years. And those walkouts have cost the NHS and, by extension, British citizens £3 billion. These junior doctors, or what do they want to call themselves now, residential doctors or resident doctors or something, they've got to be stopped. I think that they are abusing their position. I'm very reticent to tell anybody in a democracy you can't withdraw your labour in pursuit of better working conditions. That's a foundation stone to a free democracy, the right to withdraw your labour. But if when you withdraw your labour, people die, and that's what happens when doctors go on strike, when doctors walk out, people die, and they keep doing it time and time again, then I think we as a nation have to think very seriously about taking the right to strike away from these destructive lunatics whose industrial action is killing people.
Yes, and let's keep calling them junior doctors because they're behaving like bratty adolescents as it is. And let's be clear here, patients are being held hostage by their own doctors. These are the people who are supposed to put patient care before everything else. And actually, I looked into this today, and British junior doctors are the most militant in the developed world. If you look at the frequency of these strikes, the duration of the strikes, and the financial cost, we are exceptional, and not in a good way. I mean, not even the French have had to endure this sort of nationwide, paralysis of the healthcare system. And as you say, this £3 billion, we could have had 1.5 million operations could have been done. There could have been 15 million outpatient appointments. 75,000 nurses we could have had, all 3 new hospitals. Instead, all of this money has gone on hiring, temporary agency staff, on the cost of cancelled operations and the waiting list and all of that. And they're striking for what? Well, they've already had around 30% pay rise already. So on top of that 30% pay rise, they want another 26% pay rise. I mean, to put that in context, that's about 55% in total.
Yeah.
In the private sector last year, the average pay rise was 3.5%. So they're asking for basically almost 20 times the pay rise of the private sector.
Yeah, they also asked for 10 days off every Easter. I suppose they found another way of getting their time off. They just walk out and patients die. So I always say, Rafe, whatever they say, we take all the steps possible to ensure patient safety is preserved. No, you don't. If doctors aren't working, people die. These strikes cause deaths. And if you ask me, not a single life is worth sacrificing on the altar of industrial action. This is profoundly wrong, and I'm afraid that if these people carry on behaving like this, then we need to add them to the list of people we do not allow to strike. The army, the armed forces, prison officers, the police, and these people, doctors, should be added to this list because they're killing people, frankly, and it's got to stop. It is crazy. And we all told, didn't we? We all told West Reading when he first came in, if you give him this 30%, you will open the drawbridge. The drawbridge will be lowered and the floodgates will open. And sure enough, that's what's happened. The trouble with these politicians, Rafe, is they were all born yesterday. They need a dose of the real world. Quick poll has just come out, actually. NewGov poll has found that 55% of British adults now oppose the resident doctors going on strike. The amount of opposition to their industrial action, their walkout, is increasing almost by the day. So they do not have the support of the public. Let me get your view, if I can, Rafe, on Donald Trump. It seems that filtering out of Washington as we speak is the suggestion, you'll never guess, that Donald Trump now thinks that the Iranians might be seeking a peace and he might not have to raise Iran to the ground and reduce it to the Stone Age as he threatened. Just like he did last weekend and the weekend before. We can't go on like this. This is insane. I mean, obviously, I don't want him to come through with his threat that he's saying that as of 1 a.m. British time tonight, he will begin the process of returning Iran to the Stone Age, bombing all of its bridges and all of its power sources. I don't want him to do that because the human effects will be catastrophic. I mean, we will see a biblical horror if that happens. I don't want him to do this, but he can't go on every weekend like it's his hobby, saying, I'm going to raise them to the ground, I'm going to finish them there. Good news. They've offered us a peace deal. Well, what happened to the last peace deal? What happened to the last peace deal before that? We are stuck in a hamster wheel of insanity. Usually I'm a supporter of Donald Trump, but I have no idea what the hell he thinks he's up to now. What do you think, Rafe? Got any ideas?
Well, he's painted himself into an awful corner and he simply doesn't have a clue how to get out of it. All he knows how to do is talk tough in this situation because anything else will be seen as basically a defeat and a victory for the other side. You know, he hates the term taco. Trump always chickens out, but he's got himself into a position where it's taco all over the place, unfortunately. And the Iranians, despite being evil, threats to the world as they are very intelligent people. They can easily see through his posts on social media, on Truth Social. And if you read them, they do look like somebody, because we know how it works. He dictates his social media posts to a woman who sits next to him, and they are verbatim of how he's feeling at that moment. And you can almost see his frustration levels in those tweets. They started off by saying, we're going to blow them out to the Stone Age. But eventually they get to the point where you've got swear words, you've got the F word in there as his own temper goes. And if I was in Iran, I'd be saying, well, this is a man who's clearly losing control of the situation, and he's clearly not going to act because he knows if he does attack bridges and infrastructure and energy plants and oil fields in Iran, that's grounds for war crimes. But it's going to give Iran the carte blanche to attack the Gulf oil fields and energy and everything else, which will further increase the global crisis around energy. Trump doesn't want that in any case whatsoever. So, of course, he's not going to launch this onto Iran. It's obvious. Why is he putting us all through this needless stress?
Every weekend, it's getting ridiculous. As I say, it's a hamster wheel of White House madness. It really is. He's now saying, a whole civilization will die tonight. But wait for it, drum roll, something revolutionary and wonderful can happen before the deadline. That's what he's saying. Like he did last weekend, like he did the weekend before. I mean, it's just getting a bit ridiculous, to be honest with you, but ridiculous and increasingly worrying, because amid all of this chaos, all of this gobbledygook, this gibberish coming out of the White House, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, and therefore we are facing the mother of all oil shortages, the worst the world has ever seen. We will be in big trouble if that happens. So I hope some sanity emerges from the insanity we're watching at the moment. Let me ask you a last question, Rafe. I think this is interesting. The government is to issue facial recognition drones to be deployed in the Channel to catch migrant smugglers steering the small boats. So the small boats that are coming across the channel, I imagine, by the way, with the nice weather, we're probably getting a fair few hundred this week. None so far, but watch this space. Now they say, oh, we're going to deploy these drones with these suits. They can see people's faces from 2 miles away and work out who they are. And these are the people smuggling gang members who are deputed to steer these small boats across the channel to Dover and Folkestone, the south coast to the Kent coast. The trouble is, though, that they're not members of the gangs. Everybody knows steering these boats is like when you hire a boat in a lake, in a park. I mean, it's basically forward, back, right, left. What they do is they take one of the enterprising migrants, they give them a good deal on their ticket, they get half price, and they teach them how to use the boat, and you go that way. You can see the damn White Cliffs of Dover from Calais, so it's not a navigational problem. So these drones will get the features of people who are not members of the people smuggling gangs. It's another load of nonsense from a government who just makes announcements to try and persuade us they know what the hell they're doing when it comes to the migrant crisis, and they sure as hell don't.
Precisely. We've had 20 years of incompetent leadership on this issue. And even if there were some legitimate gang leaders on those boats, as soon as they've read those headlines,
it won't be now.
They won't be doing it any longer either. It's so farcical. And you have to pull your hair out that we've had so many years of this. And what do we get? 1 in, 1 out as a policy. Now we have drones as a policy. For heaven's sake, we've discussed this. And if they just watched or listened to talk, they would know what you need to do to stop all of this. I've said it for many times. Just make Britain less attractive than France and they will stop coming over. This is not rocket science. Not just close the hotels, close all the private accommodation, because it's, you don't want people living next door to you or your family or opposite your school in these multiple houses of occupation. Get refugee camps built, temporary camps, ideally in the north of England, places that are not populated, old army bases. After the Second World War, you had 250,000 Polish refugees living in these camps, including men, old men, women and children. If it was good enough for them in the 1950s, it's good enough for young fighting men. Get really tough on the landlords, the rogue landlords and the rogue employers who are accommodating and giving jobs. So these people, give them criminal penalties with a conviction in jail. And finally, for those who are still coming over, you get old cruise ships, moor them off the coast of England. And when the boats come over, if they can't be turned back to France, then the Border Force and the Coast Guard take those boats, they put the people onto the cruise ships. When the cruise ships are filled up, they're sailed off either to a place like Rwanda or to a British overseas territory like the South Georgia Islands, where essentially they'll be living in a windswept island, and it won't be long before they realize no one's ever going to set foot on England. They're going to end up in another far less desirable place, and the message will get back, and it only needs 6 months, all those policies, and they will stop coming.
So I think what you're saying, Rafe, is that the proposal to these migrants, thousands of them, by the way, gathering on North French beaches as we speak, waiting for their turn in the small boats. You're saying that us in Britain offering them a free 4-star hotel, £50 a week, free food, free doctors, free dentists and free lawyers, you're saying that's not a good idea?
Yes, in a nutshell.
It's ridiculous. It's madness. It certainly is. Rafe, fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much. Rafe Heidel, Manku historian there. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. When we come back, we're going to talk about Walker Smith. He's the hero shop assistant that tried to stop a shoplifter, and Waitrose sacked him for that. Still don't understand why. Do you? 03444991000. That next. Stay tuned.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to former police officer, retired police officer Norman Brennan. Welcome, Norman.
Yeah, good evening, Kevin.
Thanks for joining us. The good news is that Sir Richard Walker, no relation, the boss of Iceland Supermarket, the CEO there, has offered Walker Smith a job working for Iceland. The bad news is that Walker Smith, a shop assistant who worked at the Clapham branch of Waitrose for 17 years, remains sacked by that supermarket, remains sacked by Waitrose. His offence was to try to stop a shoplifter stealing a bag full of expensive Easter eggs. He tried to grab the bag. He tried to stop the shoplifter. The shoplifter got away. He grabbed the bag and then threw one of the eggs at a shopping trolley in frustration. Waitrose have sacked him because they say that no staff must not challenge shoplifters for their own safety. So Walker Smith has been sacked. Can you understand that dismissal? Because I can't.
It's a bit like the lunatics taking over the asylum. I'll be quite honest with you, Kevin, it's probably the biggest PR disaster that Waitrose has ever had. One of my posts, I think, actually sent this viral because I had about 3.5 million hits when I posted it out. I was in somewhat disbelief. I know the law. I know what the policy is of the big retail units, and it is safety over stock. When you think about the three major retail units recently, Marks and Spencer said that they were sick and tired of their staff being assaulted and abused and shoplifters getting away with murder and the police not turning up. They felt alone and abandoned. Then, of course, you got Iceland coming along saying that they believe that their security staff should be allowed to carry batons and quick cuffs and things like that to protect themselves and their staff. And then you've got Waitrose, the complete opposite, that have sacked somebody for challenging a shoplifter. Now, that is not the law, that is their policy.
Yeah,
exactly. The law, Section 24A, says that you can arrest anybody that is committing an arrestable offence, and the theft of Easter eggs or even a Mars bar is an arrestable offence. It's absolutely bizarre, and it looks like the whole of Britain have actually made their opinion very clear that this was a very wrongful act of dismissal and he should be given his job back, and rightly so. I agree.
You all know about this, Norman. People like you and me do know about this kind of thing. Coppers and journalists. We come across, the extraordinary stories from British life, and you'll know this. One of the things about British people is millions of them will always do the right thing at the right moment. And what I don't like about Waitrose's policy is, I would say to people, don't put yourself in danger, don't be reckless, don't be stupid. But at the same time, to tell people to not even think about tackling a shoplifter, tackling someone breaking the law, goes against the grain. That's not what British people are like. And if we are to be a nation that tells people, you stand by and you just watch crime, you watch people being raped, watch people being murdered, watch the thieves stealing stuff, just stand and watch, don't get involved, then that will change the nature of this country. British people are not like that, and that's why I think Waitrose are so wrong, and that's why millions of people, including yourself and me, have criticised that supermarket for its outrageous action in firing Paul Walker-Smith.
Well, it's a licence to steal. I mean, Kevin, I might have mentioned it the other day. I've been in law and order for 50 years. I hate theft. I hate thieves. I hate people that commit crime. I hate the public not being protected. And I don't like retail industry feeling as though they're alone. 1,300 retail staff are assaulted or abused every single day. Now, I'm someone that does my bit, Kevin. In the last 12 years, I've arrested or detained 34 shoplifters. 20 of those were in Waitrose in Twickenham. On one occasion, one of their security staff was bashed in the face or hit in the face with a bottle. I arrested that individual the following week when he came back stealing. One of their staff, a Bain member of staff, was stalked in Richmond, and the guy came in and hassled her. I called over to one of the duty managers and I said, do you want me to act as your agent? He knows I'm ex-Sol Bill, and you can, because somebody's entered your shop or premises illegally, ask anybody to act as your agent. He said, yes, please, Norman. So I took the guy out. He was very offensive and he was very aggressive. We fell to the ground. It was a violent struggle. I arrested him. The Met Police turned up, 3 officers, and a female officer. He said to the officer, I want that man arrested for assault. She said, you clearly don't know Mr. Brennan. He knows the law better than us. And the point I'm making is this, Kevin, is we either send a message out to shoplifters that if you go into a shop and you steal, you will be challenged. And if you are challenged and you assault that individual, you will face some terms of imprisonment. And if a member of staff or a member of the public like myself takes an individual to the ground and that individual receives a hurt, bruised arm or is injured in any way, that person has been lawfully arrested, and the person that's making that arrest, Kevin, should be protected by the law from being prosecuted. And the staff in stores, just like Waitrose, if they challenge a shoplifter, should not be sacked. They should be thanked. And if they've broken a policy, not the law, maybe some words of advice. This is the worst PR disaster I've seen for Waitrose, and really they should hold their heads in shame. There's nearly £10,000 on a GoFundMe that's been raised for Walker-Smith, and somebody else has offered him a job. Why did it have to come to that one supermarket cares enough about someone sacked from another supermarket unfairly to offer them a job? The world's gone mad.
Yeah, I totally agree, Norm. It just goes against the grain. It's not what British people are like, as I've been saying ever since yesterday. Look, everybody has to make their own decision. Don't put yourself in danger. But, you know, go with the flow. The British people are not like this. They don't just stand by and let wrongdoing unfold before their very eyes. And Waitrose are trying to get their staff, in my view, to be un-British, to let crime happen. Walker-Smith decided he didn't want to see any more of this, and he decided to take a stand. He decided to stop a shoplifter, and he got sacked for it. To hell with Waitrose for that disgraceful decision, and well done, Iceland, the boss there, Sir Richard Walker, for offering him a job. Norman, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Norman Brennan there, former police officer, putting in his 2 penneth around about Walker-Smith. Let me know what you think. I mean, it's great that Sir Richard Walker, the boss of Iceland, has offered Walker-Smith a job, but why did, you know, what on earth are Waitrose thinking? You know, I understand the policy. I understand it. You know, they don't want their staff to put themselves in danger. But just to say, well, if you try and stop a shoplifter, you'll be fired. That's just madness, and that's wrong. He tried to do the decent thing, and you sacked him. Take a look at yourself. Raise your game, Waitrose, seriously. 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we're going to return to the rape gang inquiry, the public inquiry. We're going to talk to, last week we spoke to, or on Monday, we spoke to Ellie Reynolds. That was on Friday, wasn't it? She's one of the victims who resigned from the victims panel because she didn't like the way the inquiry was heading. Fiona Goddard, who I'll talk to in a minute, also quit that panel, the victims panel, for similar reasons. We'll talk to Fiona in just a little while. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, here we go. Welcome back. Just chatting with my studio guest here. She is a rape gang victim, Fiona Goddard. Welcome, Fiona.
Hi.
Thank you for coming in. Listen, we've got lots to talk about, but I had your friend Ellie Reynolds on the show on Friday, and like Ellie, you were on the Rape Gang Inquiry's victims panel, and you, Ellie, another girl called Elizabeth have all quit because you don't like the way this inquiry is being handled, the way it's heading. Explain why it is that you quit.
So there was a lot of talk about broadening the scope and including all areas of CSE, which would have just been another replay of ICSA, which was too broad to get to the root cause of any problem. Like, don't get me wrong, ICSA did some good work in the broader area of CSE, but it didn't bring no conclusions. And it was a real fear of that being replayed. And also, the survivors and victims involved in it were as though they couldn't string their own thoughts together. It was very...
They patronised you.
Yes, saying we needed to speak to them if we were doing any other work in the areas of CSE so they could decide if it were too much. It felt like they felt we were incapable when most of the people on that panel have fought for years and have a resilience that none of them could even imagine. There was also quite a bit of pitting against each other. Like it felt like they'd manufactured something where different opinions were louder than others, and people felt fearful to voice their own experiences, which became detrimental to the whole outcome. I don't think it should have ever been done where we were all just put into one big group and all trying to talk about our experiences and our opinions on stuff.
And I know that you and Ellie and the other girls, you got increasingly disillusioned because the kind of people they were proposing to be chair people of the inquiry were exactly the kind of people that ignored you, that turned their backs when you were all victims of the rape gang scourge. So they were proposing sort of ex-coppers, ex-social workers, ex-teachers, all this kind of thing. And these are the people who, at the height of your ordeal, all turned a blind eye because they were frightened of being called Islamophobic or racist. So all of you got very fed up about that, right?
Yeah, so that was like the final straw for me. I tried hanging on until then, and then when I found out who the proposals were for the chair, it was just too much, especially ex-police officers, when they knew that people on the panel, not me, but other people on the panel, had been abused by police officers themselves during the grooming gangs. It was insulting to expect them to put their trust into a chair that was involved with the very establishment that had been involved in their abuse. And that was just when I felt like I couldn't stay quiet anymore, and that's when the night before I wrote the resignation letter, and first thing the next morning I posted it and sent it through.
And what are your concerns now, now that the inquiry has started, only started last week? What are your concerns about it going forward?
So I've met with Anne Longfield now. And
she's the chairperson.
Yeah, she's the chair. She's not like, there's nothing wrong with her. She's done brilliant work in the past. There is the
former Children's Commission.
Yeah, there is concerns over her being a Labour peer, because we had voiced in that panel multiple times, and not just me, everyone on there, that we didn't want someone that was affiliated with any political party. I know she says she's apolitical now because she stepped down from the House of Lords, but I think stepping down from the House of Lords doesn't
make her apolitical.
No, so there is that concern. The terms of reference that they've released is a big improvement on the draft terms that the government had released last year. They were very weak and didn't have the right wording or the right focus, really. So the terms of reference are an improvement. There's still concerns over the fact it's only going back to 1996 when there's documented cases back as far as 1955. I don't think you can have a cut-off point for something, because how then do you see how this started, how we came to be turning a blind eye to child sexual abuse and stuff?
Exactly. Now, in your particular case, you were raised in care, and you have tried to get compensation. You brought a legal case against West Yorkshire Police and Bradford Council, presumably for the fact that you were drawn into the rape gang scandal and nobody did anything to prevent that. The West Yorkshire Police didn't prevent it. Bradford Council did nothing about it. You've tried to sue them for compensation, and you've basically been told, no, you don't deserve it. Well, you do, don't you?
Well, I would think so, especially since I have a serious case review that says all services failed to keep me safe. There was over 7 instances of rape and sexual assault that I'd reported and they'd failed to investigate. It even states in the serious case review I was not treated the same as any other child would have been that would have been making these complaints. And also, it's not just the fact that I was abused while in their care and they did nothing about it. The care home they placed me in was already highlighted as having issues with these gangs years before I was placed there. It was well known, and I was already highlighted as being vulnerable to child sexual exploitation before being placed there. So it's the decisions of placing me there when they already knew that I was likely to become a victim. And there was a documentary filmed in 2004 that exposed the grooming gangs in that care home. It failed Ofsted repeatedly for CSE issues, but yet they still chose to place me there knowing I was vulnerable to that type of abuse. And the decisions after that, including putting me into hotel placements where the hotels were known to be used by these gangs. So at 16, I was put into hotels, which was them technically making it easier to access me for this abuse by these men.
For the audience, just explain briefly, if you can, your ordeal. When did it start? When did it end?
So I was put into a children's home in a high crime area in Bradford in 2008.
How old were you then?
I was 13, just turning 14.
Okay.
I think within 6 weeks of being in the care home, it was documented in my care records that I was a victim of CSE. That went on until 2012. And then 2013, the police turned up because my name had come up during another investigation on a checklist in one of the perpetrators' houses. And then they still didn't investigate, even though I gave them names and addresses and everything. In 2014, I exposed my care records to BBC, and that's how an investigation started, because I decided to expose my past.
That's terrible. And you've had your claims for compensation denied, right? Why is that?
They have accepted that the abuse meets Article 4, so it comes under breach of human rights and torture and stuff, but they're saying that there isn't enough information to suggest they should have known and investigated it.
But didn't you report it?
Yeah, repeatedly to the care home, and the police gave out, do you know, the paedophile ASBOs that, so they gave 13 of them out during the time, harbouring notices.
Concerning you?
Yes, to the perpetrators, some of them that went on to be convicted, some that didn't, but some that went on to be convicted. So they knew that this was happening, they was well aware of it. When I was 15, I fell pregnant. I gave birth 3 days...
Due to...
It was actually inside my care home to another person inside the care home.
Okay.
And I gave birth 3 days after my 16th birthday. They took her from me because I was exposed to a paedophile ring and it wasn't a safe environment for a child. But yet they still say that they had no idea this was happening.
So you're not giving up on this compensation?
No,
because it strikes me you've got rather a strong case.
Yeah, well, this is the fact. Like, most of the victims don't have the convictions that I have, the serious case review that I have. I've got the court transcripts, which have now been made public. I have evidence to back up what I'm saying. If I give in, then it makes it harder for the people that have less evidence, but we all know this happened to. So I can't give in because I need to set a precedent for everyone else.
So your message to West Yorkshire Police and Bradford Council is you haven't given up?
No, and I'm not going nowhere.
Well, I know you won't. When Ellie was when she was on my show last Friday, she said one of the things that enraged her was that you girls on the victims panel, she said that you were told, well, look, you can't talk about the ethnicity of the guys who raped you. And she said, well, that was central to the story. Is that the same for you?
Well, the way I felt was you were made to feel too uncomfortable to bring it up. It was like walking on eggshells because they had people in there that were not grooming gang victims and had suffered other types of abuse, and it felt like you couldn't single out the elements involved in the grooming gang scandal without it being offensive to other people. This is the issue with them putting us all in this big group and questioning us and asking us. It was then made awkward for people to voice their own opinions and their own lived experiences. It made it really difficult to navigate to the point where people didn't feel comfortable speaking up about their own experiences.
And what was the ethnicity of the gang that tormented you?
They were all from Mirpur in Kashmir.
Okay.
So all Pakistani.
Muslims of Pakistani heritage, like so many of them. So just to... what's the headline on this for you? What do you fear, or what worries you about the rape gang inquiry that you quit?
So there's multiple things. The fact that they're not announcing localities for a further 3 months, I think that's a mistake. Baroness Casey says in her audit where evidence already exists, they could start immediately. That was 7 months ago and nothing started. A further 3 months on that is mind-blowing when we've got places like Oldham that have already been identified. Why is the work not starting there? Victims need to see action because the longer we're waiting, the more anxious and nervous we get and the more that trust will disintegrate. So I would recommend and plead with them to at least start on Oldham immediately while they identify the other areas. The other thing is, I don't think the inquiry will look high enough up at who gave the orders. There's no way that every single safeguarding institute across England in all these different areas all had the same ideology and turned a blind eye to the rape of children without it coming from further up. So I want the inquiry to find out where it all come from, how we ended up here.
And for the people that turned a blind eye, that turned their backs and ignored the ordeal that people like you were going through, they should be punished. They should be prosecuted.
Accountability is such a huge thing. We don't want to hear lessons learned. Lessons learned are all well and good, and we do want things to change for the future victims or child safety, but do we not deserve accountability? Have we not been put through enough where we deserve people to be held accountable? The truth is that the decisions made by safeguarding institutes and the terminology used didn't just turn a blind eye to what happened. It facilitated and enabled that abuse to happen. It furthered it, it contributed to it, and they should be held responsible for that.
And it doesn't help that we've got a politically affiliated chairman of the inquiry. Listen, folks, don't you think that Fiona deserves compensation from West Yorkshire Police and Bradford Council? Doesn't she deserve that? Why has she been told that she doesn't deserve any compensation? Are you kidding me? 03444991000. Thank you very much to Fiona Gardner. Very brave of you. Thank you. We're going to go to break now. Back in a moment.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The Royal Navy to the rescue. Breaking news. Remember HMS Dragon, that warship? They took 3 weeks to get to Cyprus, allegedly to defend our air bases there. 3 weeks it took them. Well, it's now in the Eastern Mediterranean. Slight problem, though. It's broken down. The Ministry of Defence said HMS Dragon is undertaking a routine logistics stop and short maintenance period in the Eastern Mediterranean, allowing the ship to take on board provisions, optimise systems and conduct maintenance. HMS Dragon will remain at a very high level of readiness during this period, able to sail at short notice if required. The UK continues to maintain a robust and layered defence presence in the Eastern Mediterranean, working in coordination with allies. With a warship that's broken down. That wasn't part of their statement, that was me. HMS Dragon has broken down. You couldn't make it up. We'll talk about that in a little while. Dean Scoggins from the Sun Sport Department is in the studio. Hi, Dean.
Hello, how you doing?
Let's talk about Harry Maguire. He's signed a new contract, £200 a week.
Yeah, something like that.
United, yeah.
Unbelievable, really, when you think only a couple of years ago they were trying to sell him to West Ham for 30 million quid, and Erik ten Hag couldn't wait to get rid of him, strips him of the captaincy. It looked like he wouldn't play for Man United again, maybe wouldn't play for England again. And now, under Michael Carrick, he's been a pivotal part of that 10 games, started all 10 games under Carrick, and now they've given him another deal. So a year plus another year.
And England, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, in the form he's in at the moment and the threat he poses, dare I say, in the opposition box from a corner, would you really consider not taking him to the World Cup? So, and look, he's obviously had off-field issues with the Greece trip, obviously talked about, but on the pitch he's gone back to being the excellent central defender that we knew he was.
I think the Greek thing, the punch-up he's supposed to have had on Mykonos, I think it's an interesting story because he could just walk away from this. He doesn't have to do this, but he's pursuing it because I think he feels that he is genuinely the victim of an injustice. So we will await that case with interest, the outcome of that. Aaron Ramsey will be remembered as one of Wales's greatest players and a two-time FA Cup final match winner for Arsenal. I didn't realise he was still playing.
No, well, he's stopped now. He's retired now. So, yeah, it's a really nice piece, this, by Phil Cadden, and we're lucky enough that Phil's covered Wales and Ramsey's career right the way from the start. So, yeah, the Arsenal fans will remember him for the two match-winning goals, one against Hull after extra time, I seem to remember.
Great
and then he won it 3 times. But, yeah, he just, his career fizzled away through injury at the end. But, I mean, there was one season at Arsenal he scored 16 goals from midfield, so absolutely flying. And obviously everyone will also remember the horrible Ryan Shawcross incident with the double leg break, but he had a great career, you know, part of that Wales team that that did very well at the Euros in 2016 and 2020, played with Bale throughout most of that career as well. So fantastic player, and just a shame it sort of comes to an end as Wales don't qualify for the World Cup and he's injured. So but yeah, he'll be remembered for the glorious times.
Well, well done, Aaron Ramsey. Well, let's talk about the Masters over at my favourite golf tournament, everyone's favourite golf tournament. Rory McIlroy vowing to go on the attack as he looks to defend the title. He's in good form. Who else might beat him?
Yeah, it's a good one, Rory, this one, because he sort of went a little bit cautious when he took the lead, didn't he, last year? And all of a sudden he got dragged back to the pack, and it was like, is he going to do it? But he said this time he's not going to be defensive. Look, I think he's going to strut around Augusta like the club captain on the day of the medal, I think. But yeah, look, Cameron Young's in the group. Scotty Scheffler's the world #1 still. He's playing with Robin McIntyre and Gary Woodland. My money is on Xander Schauffele.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's not going to win it this year. It's Tiger Woods. I don't think he's taking part for technical reasons.
Absolutely,
what a story.
No driver.
Yeah, Tiger Woods, the driver, exactly. Dave Scoggins, great Sun report. That's all on the back pages of your favourite newspaper tomorrow. Don't miss it. When we come back, Lord John Redwood on all the big stories of the day. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back for the next 20 minutes or so. Let's go through some of the big stories of the day with Lord John Redwood. Welcome, John.
Good afternoon. And a bit more common sense is still needed.
It certainly is. Now, this story has just broken. It, frankly, John, it beggars belief. I'll just read you out the entire statement. You remember it took us something like 2.5, 3 weeks to finally get our lone warship, HMS Dragon, first out of Portsmouth Harbour. That took about 8 days. Then it took another 2 weeks to finally get to Cyprus to allegedly defend our air bases there, and indeed the 100,000 or so British citizens who live on that island. Well, you won't believe this, or perhaps you will. It's broken down. This statement literally broke about 10 minutes ago, this story. Ministry of Defence spokesman saying HMS Dragon is undertaking a routine logistics stop and a short maintenance period in the Eastern Mediterranean, allowing the ship to take on board provisions, optimise systems and conduct maintenance. HMS will remain at a very high level of readiness during the period, able to sail at short notice if required. The UK continues to maintain a robust and layered defensive presence in the Eastern Mediterranean, working in coordination with allies. And you have to add to that, working in coordination with our allies with a ship that has broken down. I mean, I scarcely know what to say. Do you have words to sum this up?
No, I mean, it is desperate. I mean, the gross incompetence from the top in the MOD is terrifying. And we have 6 of these very expensive, fairly new destroyers. They all had engine problems. They were all meant to get their engines re-engineered or replaced because of the engine problems. They've been taking forever to do it. And instead of having 6 ships where you'd expect to have 3 or 4 always available, we've just got this one. And they hadn't obviously finished the maintenance or the supplies for the ship properly, and put it to sea at a remarkably slow pace, and now discovered they've still got more work to do. I mean, how can it be like this? And I'm told that they only work sort of 9 to 5 days a week in a yard. But when you're preparing for a war, you need more shifts. You need to pay people properly and get the job done.
And what they said was, if you recall, when it finally sort of limped out of Portsmouth Harbour after 8 days of preparing, getting it ready, during which time we saw scaffolding all over the funnel and welding being done. So it had a lot of work to be done on it. When it got into the channel, it was described as chugging around in circles, mooching around in circles. And that was explained as a normal process because maintenance was continuing while it was at sea. Then it got to Gibraltar and it spent about 4 days there. Nobody could quite work out why that was. And then it finally gets to Cyprus and now it's broken down again. I mean, something is deeply wrong here, isn't it?
Well, it's chronic, and we were told that was the best and the most available one out of 6. You know, this nation paid big money to get those 6 ships. Why aren't more of them working, and why isn't there always one available to go and do something that needs doing? And we have 7 frigates, which are considerably older. And this government, just before all this trouble breaks out in the Middle East, decided to decommission the frigate we kept in the Middle East to help defend our personnel and bases there. And so we cancelled the one capital ship we had out there just in time for the balloon to go up. Again, total incompetence at the top.
It really is. And when, you know, the MOD, they're sort of putting a gloss on this. Why would they release a statement saying HMS Dragon is undertaking a routine logistics stop? If it was routine, they wouldn't release a statement on it, so it's not routine. And then they talk about the UK continuing to maintain a, quote, robust and layered defensive presence in the Eastern Mediterranean. Well, it may be layered, I don't know, but I would suggest it's certainly not robust.
Well, it isn't robust enough. I mean, it's quite true that the government was aware that there could be trouble in the Middle East. So at the time when they were decommissioning their warship out there and not making a destroyer available, they did actually put more planes into Cyprus, which needed the extra air defence from the destroyer. And so we do have some planes out there, and we got personnel at risk. But that's even more reason why the Navy should have turned up. And they had several months to prepare all this, because they were aware of this from quite early this year. And the result is lamentable. And we've got these 7 frigates and 6 destroyers, and the only one they could find spare was one that doesn't work.
Honestly, I'm laughing. If you didn't laugh, you'd cry. It is just pathetic.
Well, I can't believe the great Royal Navy has been brought to this, because it has very many fine people in it. It's got lots of sailors who take great pride in it. And the leadership from the top has been disastrous. And of course, it was Tony Blair who said that we couldn't afford 12 destroyers, which was the original order. And he took it down to 8, and then later on he took it down to 6. So we were left with just 6. But even so, if you've got 6 pretty modern destroyers, you should be able to have more than one broken down one available.
Yeah, I mean, America's a much bigger country than us, but population-wise, not that much bigger. It's got 390 million or something. We've got 70 million. It has 295 warships of various types. It's actually, that is a shortage. Its ideal number is around about 330. 295. And as you say, what have we got? 6 warships or something? I mean,
well, we got 6 destroyers and 7 frigates, and we got 2 really good modern carriers, but they don't seem to work that well or to be available that often. And of course, we didn't have enough destroyers and frigates to be able to send out the full complement of support ships with our carriers. So we did always have to put our carriers to sea with NATO allies helping us. And that is the result of the Blair cuts to the destroyer programme and the failure of combined governments to get the new frigates ready on time.
A quick word from you on President Trump. I mean, his messages from the White House get more and more confusing. Of course, he is tonight at 1 a.m. British time. He says, threatening to reduce Iran to the Stone Age, to bomb all its bridges and all its power sources. I mean, the human results of that could be catastrophic. We could have a serious biblical situation if he does do that. But he's starting to make his traditional noises that he always does when he says he's going to reduce Iran to rubble. He always says, oh, wait a minute, they're starting to ask for peace. Well, they started to ask for peace 3 weekends ago. And then 2 weekends ago, and then last weekend, and now they're apparently doing it again. We can't carry on with this ritual dance, can we? I'm going to blow them to the Stone Age. Oh, wait a minute, they're talking. They want peace. Well, do they? They haven't shown any signs of it so far. What do you think the hell is going on, Lord Redwood?
Well, I think that President Trump was told he had all this fantastic weaponry. He could kill the leadership of Iran. There would be alternative leadership supplied, and they would be more compliant, and they would behave rather better, and he could do a deal. And he hasn't been able to do that. The military have delivered a lot of the damage they promised, but the regime has proved to be rather stronger in wanting to stay a nuisance to the West and a problem to its own people. And I think, Trump is understandably, in his terms, using very elevated language to try and get a deal, but it isn't working, and he's got to rethink the strategy if he doesn't get that deal by 1 a.m. as he is hoping, and we all hope he did get a deal. But I fear that what's happened is that the people who are now in charge of Iran have discovered they got an extremely powerful weapon against America and her allies, which is controlling the Straits and preventing all our commercial shipping using it, and threatening us as well as the Americans if we do try and move commercial shipping or undertake peaceful commerce. That I think Trump has a really big problem, and he's not sure how he can recapture the Straits and get a peace deal that looks sensible.
And when he tweets, clearly in a rage at 3 a.m, open the effing Strait of Hormuz, you crazy bastards, I mean, he's rather showing his hand, isn't he, to the Iranians? I should imagine in Tehran they were weeping with laughter over this. They've obviously got him annoyed and frustrated.
Yeah, I think that was one of his worst, and I think it does make him look weak, not strong, and clearly it didn't work because they didn't immediately say, you know what, we'd like to do a deal. Now, his supporters are saying that there are genuine talks going on, and it seems that there are some communications and talks going on, so we obviously all wish that every success.
Yeah.
But I think Trump does need to change his language and style to try and get a diplomatic solution to this problem. Because there is a great temptation for the extremists in Iran to say, well, we've got him on the run because of the Straits. Why should we give that away anytime soon?
Yeah, we seem to be sort of trapped in a mad hamster wheel of sort of virtually every weekend. Trump saying, I'm going to bomb them to oblivion. They won't know what's hit them. The world will be astonished at what it sees. And then, oh, wait a minute, they want peace. I can't tell you who I'm negotiating with because they would get killed if anybody found out. And then we don't get peace. Then he threatens again to bomb them into oblivion. Then at the last moment he says, oh, wait a minute, they want peace again. It's getting a little bit ridiculous to say the
Well,
least.
and also he should be on the side of many of the people in Iran who don't want this regime to continue. But when they rose up, so many of them were killed and America wasn't able to go to their help at that point. That there is a big problem because the very people who he should be wanting to help, who want to change the government, will be the ones most badly affected if all the bridges and power stations are taken out.
Yeah, it's a very worrying situation. Let's wait and see what happens tonight, he says.
Yeah, we're all very worried and we obviously want a peaceful outcome, but it's not looking great.
Yeah, and we should remember that if he does do what he's threatening and bombs all the bridges and all the power sources, the effect on the Iranian people, 90 million of them, will be biblical. I mean, it's going to be an absolute catastrophe.
Nobody wants to live in the cold and the dark and not have a job to go to, but also the mad people in charge of Iran will probably unleash what other weapons they've still got, and they still seem to have some, against oil and petrochemical installations in the Gulf area, and greatly intensify the economic problems that this crisis is creating.
Indeed. As a last question, I'm going to go off piste if you don't mind, John. I'll give you some statistics first. Sexual offences in this country are rocketing. They're soaring. Last year, 209,079 sexual offences were recorded by the police in the year up to March 2025. That's an 11% increase on the previous year. Of those, nearly 72,000 of those offences were rapes, and very worrying, 70 to 80,000 of these reported sexual offences were paedophile offences, child sex offences, offences against children, underage people. Now, with a view to that, they have a similar problem in Italy. Giorgia Meloni's government is backing plans to bring in as a punishment for serious violent sex offenders against women and children, chemical castration. Now, given that whatever it is that we in this country are trying to deter people from committing sexual offences, given that that's clearly not working, do you think there is a case to think about chemical castration to ensure that they cannot repeat their heinous crimes and to punish them in the ultimate way? There is a sort of pilot scheme going on where some volunteer prisoners have put themselves forward for a scheme. Do you think we need to look at what Italy is doing and think about doing it ourselves?
Well, I certainly think we've got to rethink the policy. The government keeps trotting out its soundbite that it's going to make women and children safe, but they get less safe by the day, as your statistics are cruelly reminding us. And it's very difficult for a normal dad or granddad to understand how people could possibly want to do this kind of thing. But there are these really nasty criminal people. There seem to be more of them, and they're getting away with it. I think detection and prosecution is the first thing. I mean, why did we allow those rape gangs to carry on? It wasn't because the punishments weren't severe enough. It was because they all thought they could get away with it because nobody bothered to prosecute them at all. So the first task for the government is to say, no, the law is going to apply whoever you are, wherever you are. The rape gang scandal is a complete disaster for this country, and we must make sure the police make this a great priority and that the social workers and the community and all the others involved take it incredibly seriously and make a hostile atmosphere for all these wayward men that are doing so much damage.
Well, for example, Hugh Edwards, he's an example of a virtual policy that we have in this country that I would suggest is wrong. You know, I don't want to hear people saying, oh, well, our jails are so crowded, we can't keep sending everyone to prison. Well, if it's child sex offences, if it's paedophile sex we're talking about, as in the case of Hugh Edwards, who was caught in possession of this vile catalogue of the worst kind of child sex images, if it's that sort of thing, why do we have a policy in this country of basically never sending first-time paedophile offenders to jail? They all get suspended sentences. I think we've got to think about that. I think we've got to review that. Would you agree?
No, I agree, and I agree. Tougher sentences is the sequel to actually having any kind of prosecution. But I think the prior issue is that the shame of this country, that so many people in important positions in many of our major cities turned a blind eye to years of abuse of girls and young women.
Yeah, and let me just last point to you about you alluded to the rape gang in Cray. I've just had a victim in the studio, Fiona Goddard, very articulate young woman who went through hell up where she lives in the Bradford area. And I also had another rape victim on my show last week called Ellie Reynolds. She's from Barrow-in-Furness. Both of these girls were on the victims panel. There's about 6 or 7 of them were convened to be victims, the representatives of the victims of this scourge as part of the inquiry. 3 of them have quit, including Fiona and Ellie and a girl called Elizabeth. And one of the reasons they've quit is they're extremely unhappy about Baroness Anne Longfield. Not personally, but because what they were assured and what they wanted was political impartiality. Anne Longfield is a Labour peer. Her defences are, I've quit the Labour whip, you know, I'm no longer a Labour peer. But her affiliations are obvious. And the victims are very unhappy about this. You can't help feeling that this is Kieran the gang putting one of their own into the position of running this rape gang inquiry so it doesn't come out too badly for Labour.
Well, that's very worrying, and they would know, because they were obviously sitting there and they got very alarmed. But you'd have thought that someone who was a Labour peer would be particularly hard on Labour councils if there are Labour councils who were turning a blind eye or failing to follow through, as well may be the case. And clearly any Conservative would be deeply ashamed if a Conservative council had been doing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. The reason Labour has always been reluctant about this inquiry is because it will not reflect well on Labour councils. So many of the areas where the rape gang scourge was unfolding were Labour-controlled councils, so a lot of local politicians in the frame.
Well, that's rightly so, because why would you want to turn a blind eye to something as gross as that in your area? And you should have been on the side of the women and girls and the poor families that were being abused and taken advantage of in this atrocious way. I mean, it really is a huge scandal. And we really do need more urgency and more sense of outrage about what happened.
Totally agree. 250,000 victims, they believe. 250,000. And we're still only just now getting around to the inquiry we should have had years ago. John, it's excellent to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. Lord John Redwood there with some of the big stories of the day. Let's go to a break. And when we come back, I've got a competition for you. So stay where you are.
common sense.
The crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So, Scott Mills, remember him? He used to be the Radio 2 breakfast DJ. As of last Monday, he was sacked. We're not quite sure why. Something's happened serious. But boy, oh boy, is this guy getting cancelled. You just heard on the news that he's parted company with the MS Society, muscular sclerosis. He's been dropped by other charities. But the BBC, my God, they are wiping him out of history. They are unpersoning him in a way that North Korea would be proud of. You know, they've dropped all the editions of Top of the Pops that he was on. They're taking down plaques, his picture, everything, as if he never existed. We'll talk about the utter and total cancellation of Scott Mills in a little while. But first, competition time. We are giving you the chance to win a life-changing £20,000 completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Good luck with that. Now, let's move straight on to the Scott Mills affair. Scott Mills, who fairly soon, you won't know his name if the BBC's got anything to do it. Boy, oh boy, are they cancelling that guy massively. Let's talk to Campaign Director at Defund the BBC, Rebecca Ryan. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Kevin.
Now, there's something that we don't know. I'm convinced of that about Scott Mills. Something cropped up that I think would probably shock us to the hilt. I really do. It cannot be what we already know. It cannot be that they sacked him after, you know, historically, that he was cleared of paedophile sex offences against his alleged victim. It cannot be that, because the BBC have known about that for a fair few years. So something has happened. Whatever it is, it must be immense, because Christ, are they cancelling him, the BBC. So this wasn't the BBC, but last week he had the plaque removed from a service station on the M3 motorway to denote the fact that he'd had a campaign to have a bridge named after him, the Scott Mills Bridge. That's gone. There was a plaque in the Radio 1 breakfast studio with his name on it, because he hosted Radio 1 shows. That's gone. They've also, they're busy removing all episodes of Top of the Pops that he ever appeared on. They're busy expunging all episodes of the Eurovision Song Contest that he appeared on. He always used to host the semi-finals. So they are unpersoning Scott Mills in a way that North Korea would be proud of. I mean, look, he clearly, I would suggest, deserves what's happening. I don't have any truck with that. But the BBC, the way it's going about kind of erasing him from history is a bit sinister. It is a bit North Korean, isn't it?
I mean, it's just bizarre, isn't it? Because as you said, they've known about allegations for at least 9 years and did absolutely nothing. In fact, they promoted him hugely in that time, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they've known about further allegations for 11 months, which they chose to ignore. And then suddenly, as of last week, as you say, all systems go and quick eradicate. So clearly there's something else going on there. Yeah. But also they're probably extremely embarrassed about the fact that they've sat on this for almost a decade, as they did with numerous other scandals that they've had to...
Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Greg Wallace. I mean, all of these scandals they knew about for years before being forced into action. Now, Tim Davie, who left last week, all the BBC stuff, he was a very good Director General. No. He was like all the other Director Generals, completely and utterly useless. But BBC brainwashed staffers always think their Director General is good, and the rest of us from outside that weird organisation going, no, he wasn't. He was terrible. But his parting shot was partly to say, encouragingly to his successor, Matt Britton, rancid BBC culture will never be cured, will never be fixed. That was one thing. But he did say to the staff, well, the one thing's for sure is Scott Mills had to go. He absolutely had to go. So here's the problem. With that statement, Tim Davies proves that he's presiding over the culture that gets this organisation into trouble every day of the week, time and time and time again. The culture of secrecy. What is it that meant he had to go, Tim? Why can't you tell us that? It's no good just saying, oh, well, he had to go. Because, as I said, Rebecca, it goes like this, right? The BBC... To be fair to Scott Mills, he went to the BBC 7 years ago, in 2018, I think it was, when the police wanted to interview him for alleged historical, serious sexual offences against his victim, his alleged victim. That was back in the late 90s. That was historical. He went to the BBC and said, look, they want to interview him. So the BBC knew about that. So the implication last week was, well, what the BBC found out last week was that alleged victim was underage. So that would indicate, if it's that means that their policy is, if you're interviewed for alleged historical sex offences that are found not to be strong enough to support a police prosecution, but they're against an overage person, then you don't get sacked. But if the person who made the allegations against you that were not proven is underage, then you do get sacked. It cannot be that, can it? There must be something else. So as Tim Davie leaves, he leaves doing what the BBC always does to those of us who are forced to pay its exorbitant £175 a year TV licence fee. He leaves keeping a secret from us. Give us your money and we'll keep secrets from you. That's the BBC.
Absolutely. And this is the thing that's so outrageous to people, is that they're forced to pay for this organisation if they watch any live broadcast TV whatsoever. And they're bullied into it with these really threatening letters that come through the door that don't spell out exactly what you can and can't watch. You know, it's all very unclear. And then the BBC carries on this kind of theme throughout this whole organisation of complete lack of clarity. Yet we're bullied into paying for it, and it's not okay. I mean, we've got the Royal Charter where they have these obligations where they're supposed to deliver journalistic excellence and representing all parts of the UK, and they don't deliver on any of that either. And yet we're still forced to pay for it. And so people are really, really frustrated. And the interesting thing about Tim Davie, obviously, is he presided over this huge amount of people actually realising, I don't have to pay for the BBC. I'm not going to watch any live broadcast TV, so I'm not going to pay for the TV licence. And the number of TV licenses under his watch that dropped was huge, and so perhaps he thought, you know, as he was going out the door, he'd take the whole Scott Mills issue with him, so that they had potentially a sort of a clean slate to start with the new Director General. But goodness knows what they think. I
tell you what we need. I tell you what he did not deliver but should have, is that those of us who have to pay this damn licence fee. We shouldn't have to put up with a system. Well, give us your money and then we won't tell you anything. We'll keep secrets from you. That's not good enough. Now, two things here. Tim Davie should have become a serious expert at dealing with paedophile scandals. Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Hugh Edwards. He should have known what to do when the Scott Mills issue came along. Should say nothing has been proved against Scott Mills, and the police and the CPS decided they did not have enough evidence to prosecute him for alleged serious sexual offences against a minor. That said, what Tim Davie has departed from the BBC without telling us, and we deserve to be told, is what exactly is the state broadcaster's policy with regard to senior members of staff, presenters, who are wrapped up, find themselves involved in some sort of paedophile scandal. What are the criteria? At what point are they allowed to stay? And at what point are they told you have to leave? Because we don't know, do we? Tim Davie just leaving, not understanding the heinous problems of his tenure as Director General, just constantly keeping secrets for us, constantly not telling us stuff. What is the BBC's policy about its stars that become embroiled in alleged paedophile scandals? Because Tim Davie didn't tell us, did he?
He absolutely didn't tell us. So this is the thing. I think they dare not speak about it, because then once they've said it out loud, they think that makes it, that will stick. But actually, there's no hiding from this. Everybody knows that the BBC is churning out this sort of talent with paedophile scandal after paedophile scandal. You know, they may as well just own. They may as well just come clean and say, look, we've got to get a grip on this. You guys are having to pay for us, and therefore, we'll tell you what our policies are and how we're going to handle this going forward. But they're never going to do that, are they?
Yeah, and they seem to, they think their viewpoint is clearly this. Right, let's wipe Scott Mills' name from the face of BBC history. Let's get rid of him. Get rid of all those Top of the Pops, all those Eurovisions, all those recordings of Radio 2. Let's get rid of the plaque. Yeah, get rid of his pictures. Then he won't ever have existed, will he? Thank you very much, Pol Pot. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is ridiculous, but that's how it goes. Chimes in with their way of thinking that if you just remove someone from the equation, that we won't be reminded of the constant sex scandals and paedophile scandals that the BBC has overseen, and therefore, the only way of dealing with it is completely eradicate him from all history.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, last question to you, Rebecca. Now that they've disbanded the Keystone Cops, where do you think Tim Davie can go on to work?
I don't know. He's probably going to go into the House of Lords, isn't he? I imagine someone will give him a peerage.
I was going to say he was the Keystone Cop of Director Generals, but to be fair, he's just as useless as all the other ones. And this new guy, well, let's see. The thing that worried me about him, I like the idea that horror of horrors, BBC staff are not used to this, that their Director General, their next Director General, has worked somewhere else apart from the BBC, worked for Google for 10 years in very high positions. So that's encouraging. The thing that worried me about his CV, though, was he's a former director of which newspaper group do you think? The Guardian. Yeah, right on. Left winger, yeah. The BBC and The Guardian together in bed. Wonderful, isn't it? Rebecca, great to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. 03444991000. Let me know what you think about Scott Mills and the BBC. They're eradicating him. Next up, after the break, we're going to talk about what might be in the Sun, well, not might be, what will be in the pages of the Sun newspaper tomorrow with night news editor, director of news there, John Lucas. That next. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Time to work out what's in the pages of the Sun newspaper tomorrow in the excellent company of Assistant Night News and Assistant Head of News, let's get the job right, of the Sun, John Lucas. Welcome, John.
Evening.
Right, well, you're going to go big, obviously, on Donald Trump, and we'll find out what happens at 1 a.m. our time, we're told. But he is warning that a whole civilization will die tonight. Explosions have already rocked Iran's oil island, Karg Island. Yeah, it could be that all hell is about to break loose.
Yeah, kind of punchy statement from Trump, to say the least, on Truth Social today, saying a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. It's quite worrying. Lots of people online are sort of taking this as, oh, my word, he's going to drop a nuclear bomb on them. I don't think...
I think they've announced it won't be nuclear.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real sign that that's the case. What we've seen today are strikes on roads, other infrastructure like bridges, more strikes on Karg Island. They already carried out 100-odd strikes on this Karg Island. And why that's a crucial area is because it processes about 90% of the crude oil from Iran.
Yeah.
If you hold that, you've got Iran's economy by the neck, and we know that there are lots and lots of Marines and other US troops that have been brought to the area, so the writing's kind of on the wall that we could end up seeing boots on the ground. Obviously for our paper, we'd have put it to bed long by the time this deadline, we hit the deadline, which is 1 a.m, but obviously if you want to check the website, we're still going to have coverage all through the night. I suspect probably what will happen is we'll get to this deadline, and we've seen Trump set these hard deadlines before and then say, well, actually, I'm going to give another 24 hours, another 48 hours, and he'll roll back. Even if that isn't the case, I think you're probably not going to see, it's not going to get to 1 o'clock in the morning and you're going to get
suddenly
I don't think that'll happen.
Hellfire breaks out.
Yeah, I think we'll have a bit of breathing space, but it's scary stuff. I mean, some of the language that Trump uses, I mean, he's always has been very sort of straight speaking, let's put it that way, but it's very, very punchy is one way to put it.
Yeah, well, I was saying that earlier in the show, you know, when he said that thing about, you open the effing straight, open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, and all this. I was thinking, I fancy a game of poker against this guy, because he's rather showing his hand, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's got thin skin. He's wound up. This war, I don't think anybody on their side realistically can argue it's gone exactly how they wanted it to go. I'm not sure who knows how they did want it to go, because we're not really clear. And he's talking about Iran needing to make a deal, but I mean, publicly, we don't really know what that deal is, you know, what it all covers, because presumably it's everybody in the regime has to put their hands up and surrender, and they've been oppressing their own people for 50 years, killing, you know, through terror attacks, killing people around the world for 50 years. Nobody wants to put their hand, wave the white flag and take their chances with the people, the majority of the people in Iran who aren't very happy with them.
Yeah, no, and if he comes through with this threat, as I keep saying, I mean, the effects could be biblical, and nobody wants that. But you know, the clock is ticking. We'll see what happens tonight at 1 a.m. British time. This is an interesting story. Richard West, 51-year-old copper. He's a sergeant at Humberside Police. He's been removed from duty, from frontline duties, while he's investigated for coercive and misogynistic behaviour towards a female officer. The interesting element to this story is he's also an FA referee, and they did not blow the whistle on him when he was an official at the Saturday FA Cup quarter-final clash between Chelsea and Port Vale. So he's still refereeing.
That's it. Well, yeah, and look, this is our bread and butter, this sort of stuff. It's an exclusive story brought in by Stephen Moyes, our esteemed associate news editor, and he was the guy. We had all those great exclusives about the other referee, David Coote.
That's right, yeah.
And all of his
so he's your referee correspondent.
He's a referee correspondent. He does lots and lots of great work, award-winning journalist. And, you know, just wanted to flag this story up because I don't always get to talk about the exclusives, but this is what we do, bread and butter. And if you're out there listening or watching and you've got one, give us a bell.
This is a great Sun story because millions of people watched that match. Chelsea were a bit lucky, if you ask me, just nicking that 7-0, but that's another issue. I don't like Chelsea, but people will see the match. You watch the linesman, he's a linesman, and you see that guy, and then you get this story that he's suspended by the police from frontline duty. Great story, great exclusive. That is in your Sun newspaper tomorrow. I like your final story as well, John. Give a dog a bonus. A couple who have an adorable dachshund, sausage dog we call them, don't they, is now the breadwinner of the household. Shannon Edmondson from Stalybridge in Manchester has turned her miniature long-haired sausage dog, dachshund Wilson, into a social media star who has generated just over £4,500 in 1 month, and it's helped to fund Shannon's dream wedding. So Wilson is bringing in the bucks.
Yeah, it's not bad. And obviously in the States they call these dogs wieners, don't they?
That's right.
So his Instagram handle is Wilson the Wiener.
Yeah.
And if you go on there, you'll see he's posed up in all his wacky costumes. He's got his Christmas hat on, cowboy boots on, and all this stuff. And they're doing very well out of it. And he has got 127,000 followers.
127,000 followers.
Now, in comparison, you have got slightly less.
I've got about 101,000.
You've got 101.5.
I'm not too bad, but I am no Wilson the Wiener, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and if you could monetise it like Wilson, and I've only got 1,863 on Twitter, which is very, very sad. There's no way I'm going to make $4,500 a month on social media.
Me neither. I'll tell you what, there'll be dogs all over the country tomorrow, or with people dressing them up and taking pictures. The dogs all going, that bloody Sun newspaper and its stories. Everyone trying to make some cash out of their hounds. Great story. 3 great stories, all in the Sun tomorrow. Big thanks to Assistant Head of News at the Sun, John Lucas. Thanks, John. Next up, we'll take your calls and I'll read some of your messages. So there's lots still to come. Peter Cardwell will be in towards 7 o'clock to tell you what he's got lined up for your entertainment all the way till 10 p.m. So a lot still to come. Stay where you are. Back in a mo.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is what I have to put up with. This is from Richard in Leicester. Kevin, get Trump syndrome out your head. It's Trump derangement syndrome, Richard. When you phone him tonight to talk war, tell him it's apostrophe in it's, by the way, affecting you badly, affecting. You talk absolutely crap. Richard, crap's only got one P. Have a good day. You have a good day too, Richard. Thanks for an excellent message. Let's get to some proper messages, shall we? I mean, I'm a journalist, Richard. You don't think that it might be worth talking about the fact that the president is threatening to unleash all hell on Iran tonight, to reduce it to the Stone Age? You don't think that's a story? Someone like me shouldn't really be mentioning it. Don't be ridiculous. God almighty. Have a look at yourself. Right, this is Martin. Much better tweet or message from Martin in Lichfield. HMS Dragon needs to be renamed HMS Dipstick. What an embarrassment to this once proud country. Couldn't agree more. HMS Dragon took 3 weeks to get to Cyprus and immediately broke down. Great. Fantastic. I suppose on the plus side it didn't actually sink. No doubt that will happen tomorrow. Here is this is from Fiona and Kevin. This is from Fiona and Kevin. Kevin, at the end of the last Bond film, No Time to Die, M is giving the Royal Navy permission to fire rockets to the island where Bond has opened the bomb-proof doors. The caption of the ship firing the rockets announced the vessel is HMS Dragon. Well, you know, that's just fiction. If in real life HMS Dragon wouldn't be there because it would have broken down. Ridiculous. Can you? It's unbelievable. Our one ship gets to the Mediterranean and breaks down. If that's not a symbol of Starmer's broken Britain, I don't know what is. This is from Amanda. Dear Lord, how is it that our once great and proud country has descended into such pathetic and embarrassing decline? It's well put, Amanda, and I don't know. I just don't know. Look, the Tories have to take a lot of blame. 14 years of pathetic Tory rule, absolutely awful government by that lot, followed by the even worse government of Labour, Keir Starmer. We are in the hands of idiots, and we have been now for about 16 years. We need a better class of politician. Here's one from Leslie in Preston. At least we now know why Waitrose is so expensive. Their customers are paying over the odds to support criminals. Exactly. That's why shoplifting is not a victimless crime. It puts all of our prices up. So there you are. This is Joanna from Salisbury. A great idea of darling Georgia Maloney, chemical castration. It would be a good idea to give sex-offending migrants the choice of chemical castration or a plane ticket home. Or both. Right, let's go to the phones. Peter Cardwell will be in just a little while. Let's talk to Laura in Wiltshire. Hi, Laura.
Kev, my head's in my hands just listening to the last couple
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah.
The inarticulate Richard and the shit that doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, I just don't know what to say. But what I was going to say is that something that perked me up, this whole shoplifting thing is a nightmare. I live in rural Wiltshire. My nearest Waitrose, M&S very nice, in Salisbury. Mm-hmm. Don't really come across it. My daughter lives in Brixton, mm-hmm. and there's a Sainsbury's there that is just, she's had her phone nicked there. They got it again. It's just rife. However, they opened a really smart new Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah.
And it's on a corner, and it only has one entrance in and out.
Yeah.
And when you walk in, there are two, and I'm just going to say this, of the biggest, butchest black guys in M&S uniform you could see. And they stand there like huge boxers and say, welcome, and they give you a basket.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic because you walk in and think, oh, well, I'm looked after in here. And you go around, the staff feel happy.
I wonder what the policy, though, is, Laura. By the way, I think we should probably stress that these security guards' colours got nothing to do with it. They're just big burly guys. Big burly guys. But I wonder what the policy is, Laura.
But you're in Brixton and they fit in with their environment. You know, they are the right people for Brixton. Yeah. They are fantastic. I don't know what the policy is. But
see, because if it was at Waitrose, the policy would be, despite these big burly guys, they would be ordered by the store not to stop any shoplifters. And this is the case. You have security guards are hired by some of these supermarkets and then told under no circumstances must you stop shoplifters for your own safety, which strikes me as bizarre. But maybe we'll try to find out from Marks and Spencer's. It sounds like they've got the right idea. We certainly need to do something about this. Laura, thanks. Really good call. Thank you. Call me again. Laura in Wiltshire. Interesting. Let's talk to Danny in London. Hello, Danny.
Good evening. I just want to comment on this Kanye West. I think the government are completely right to stop him coming here because the things he said about the Jewish people was despicable, absolutely despicable.
Oh, he's an anti-Semite. He's a Nazi. Yeah.
However, why do they let that bloke say death to the IDF? He's done it twice. So if it's good for Kanye West, why isn't it good for this?
Well, yeah, that's what I say. I mean, the Met Police say they're investigating Pascal Robinson Foster, is his name, from Bob Villan, for chanting death to the IDF at the Al-Quds rally in central London 3 weeks ago. They said they're investigating for potential anti-Semitism. We haven't heard anything from the Met Police yet, and we'll try to find out. But I agree with you. I don't think he should be allowed to shout that. But the police don't seem to do anything about it. So good point. Thank you, Danny. Call me again. Danny in London. And finally, let's quickly talk to Jason in Sheffield. Hi, Jason.
Yeah, all right, Kev. Just one very quick point.
Quickly.
Young lady on earlier.
Yep. The grooming gang victim, yeah.
Yep, victim of the Pakistani child rape gangs. Shit, but they didn't allow her to claim compensation or from West
I get that. West Yorkshire Police, yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I didn't let her do it is because
it might be admitting guilt, but I think guilt is pretty obvious. But yeah, you're right. But hopefully Fiona does get her money. Jason, thanks for ringing. Call me again. Jason in Sheffield. Peter Cardwell's in the studio. Hello, Peter. What's on your show?
Two stories.
The sinking ship of HMS Dragon.
That's it. Two stories and